hurt people hurt people. So when somebody is hurting us, rather than feeling resentful towards them, why is this person doing like this to me? We can try to see from their perspective how they are hurt. And that can create empathy. And second session I talked about how we need to make judgments, but we should be judgmental. We can't fix labels on people permanently. That impedes us in proper communication with them and prevents the deepening of the relationship. Then the third session, I talked about how amidst difficult situations, we need to respond by choosing one of three options. We focus on not other people's behaviors, but our own values. I talked about tolerate, mitigate, and emigrate. Three options. So today, in the last session, I talk about how we need to look up before we look around. That means that for all of us, we have different relationships in the world, and our most important relationship is the vertical relationship, that is the relationship with Krishna. All other relationships are horizontal relationships, and they are all important in their own way. At the same time, none of the horizontal relationships are eternal. And we all get a sense of our identity and our self-worth from our relationships. Say, for example, if our children do nicely, then we feel satisfied that I'm a good parent. So, our sense of identity comes from that relationship. One of the greatest fears today in the 21st century is a fear that is related with relationships. If we consider the fears, the top 10 fears that people had in the 18th century, 19th century, 20th century, 21st century, two new fears have been added in the 21st century. One is the fear of terrorists, and the second is the fear of rejection. That we may try to form a relationship with somebody may reject me, somebody may abandon me. So that fear is there because it's not just the fear that that particular relationship may break. The fear is also that when that relationship, some relationship doesn't work out, then we feel as if I am unworthy to be loved. Whenever some relationship doesn't work out, we feel unloved. But if many relationships don't seem to be working out, then we start feeling that I am not only unloved, but that I am unlovable. And that feeling can be devastating. So the Bhakti tradition helps us to understand that we are neither unloved nor unlovable. Because Krishna always loves us. Krishna is always present in our hearts. Sarvasya chaham hridisannivishto. He is present in our hearts, and He is there because He cares for us. And He cares for us, and that's why He wants to guide us. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddeche arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarunani mayaya. 1861 in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that He guides the wanderings of everyone. So Krishna is closer to us, and the closest person to us can ever be. Even if they hug us in the tightest of hugs, still that person can't come as close to us ever as Krishna always is. And that Krishna, He is the supreme person. So that relationship has to be the basis of our identity. That has to be our fundamental shelter. Then, when we have the security of the relationship with Krishna, then even if we experience some ups and downs in our horizontal relationships, we can cope with them. We can see any problem, we can see even a failure in a relationship as a bump on the road. But if a relationship has become the basis of our identity or the sole basis of our identity, then if that relationship doesn't work out, then we see it not as a bump on the road of life, but as the end of the road of life. My life itself has become meaningless. This happens many times in romantic relationships. If there is a breakup, people go into depression. Sometimes people even become suicidal. That's because they have defined themselves in terms of that relationship. So the only relationship we should define ourselves in terms of fundamentally is our relationship with Krishna. Jivera Swarup hoye, Krishnera Nityadavas. And the more we practice bhakti and connect with Krishna, the more we'll be able to stabilize ourselves in all our relationships. So when we practice bhakti, we get that inner security, inner strength, that Krishna is with me. And Yamunacharya in his Stotratna says, Bhavantameva Charan Nirantara Prashantanihishesh Manorathantara Kadahamaikanteka Nitya Kinkara Praharshayishami Sanatha Jivitam. So he is praying to the Lord, Bhavantam. My dear Lord, ever since Evanu Charan Nirantara, I have started serving you continuously. What has happened? Prashantanihishesh Manorathantara. The mind is like on a wild chariot, always running here, there, everywhere. But now it has become calm. Prashantanihishesh. It has become very calm. Then, does that calmness mean passivity? That I don't do anything? No. He says, now also I have aspirations in my life. And what are my aspirations? Kadahamaikanteka nitya kinkaraha. When can I realize that, my dear Lord, I am your eternal servant? And praharshayishami sanatha jivitam. And when can I delight in this relationship, understanding that I have such a wonderful Lord, that we are Sanath, we have a Lord, a protector, and praharshayishami, in understanding His glories, in relishing His glories, that is the joy of our life. This, when we start practicing bhakti, what happens is our appreciation of Krishna's glories increases. And we feel such a wonderful Lord is there in my heart. And we get security, we get serenity, we get ecstasy in that relationship with Krishna. And then, when that relationship with Krishna is stable, then we don't get that agitated by ups and downs in our horizontal relationships. So the Lord, how far is Krishna from us right now? What do you think? Sorry? He's very near. He's in our heart. He's one call distance. One call distance, yeah. Very small. So actually, you can say Krishna is just one thought away from us. Krishna is close to us, but in the sense we are far away from Him, because we have turned away from Him. But if we just think of Him, if we just try to direct our thoughts towards Him, we can connect with Him. And as we practice Bhakti Yoga, our thoughts become more consistent, more focused, then we can start feeling His presence. So this is Krishna. The whole process of Krishna consciousness is the process of connecting with Krishna through our thoughts, and thereby experiencing shelter in that relationship with Krishna. So the foundation for any responsible relationship is taking responsibility for our relationship with Krishna. Because once that relationship is stable, then other relationships can be stabilized thereafter. So any questions or comments at this point? Okay. So the second point which I'll make on this now is that when we act in any relationship, So we practice bhakti to stabilize the vertical relationship, to get strength to that. And then in the horizontal relationships when we act, there will be times when we like someone. Sometimes we just can't tolerate that person. And it is not that the same person, one day we may feel, oh, such a wonderful person. Sometimes we feel such an unbearable person. So sometimes we get too caught with our emotions. And sometimes we feel, I should not be feeling like this. And sometimes I'm feeling like this, why am I even in this relationship? So here, it's an important thing to understand that trying to control our emotions is nearly an impossible task. Instead, we can focus on instead of trying to control how we feel, we can take control of how we act, of what we do. What is the difference between the two? That feelings are like the weather. The weather changes unpredictably. And sometimes it is hot, sometimes it is cold. Even in a hot season, even there also there is variation. Sometimes it's more hot, sometimes it's less hot. So if we start trying to control the weather, it's almost impossible. So just as the weather changes unpredictably, similarly our feelings will change unpredictably. And if we think our relationships are to be based on our feelings, then we cannot have stability in any relationship. Now, of course, every relationship is for the purpose where we want to experience love, we want to experience reciprocation, we want to experience joy. That is true. But our feelings keep going up and down. And if we are driven by our feelings, then we will be very unsteady. So instead of trying to control how we feel, we can focus on taking control of what we do. So if we start acting in a mood of loving service, whatever be the relationship we are in the relationship with Krishna, in the relationship with others, now, how can I act in a mood of loving service? I feel so angry with this person, I feel so annoyed with this person, I feel so disconnected with this person. But let me try, how best can I serve in this situation? So if we start acting in a mood of service, we'll find that the connection will start getting established. So love is not just a noun, it's also a verb. And responsible relationship means rather than waiting for the emotion to come, we act in a way that the emotion will come gradually. Many times when we start doing a particular thing, gradually the emotion starts coming. Say, if a mother has a newborn child, normally when a mother has a child, just looking at the child, feeling the child on the lap, seeing the child drinking the breast milk, that with so much affection and joy for the mother. But suppose the mother has worked long and hard throughout the day, and then at night she's sleeping, and suddenly the baby starts crying. And the babies cry, they are like an alarm clock that goes off unpredictably. Now, suddenly at night when the baby starts crying, at that time the mother may not feel a flood of love for the child. Initially the emotion might just be, oh, why is she crying? Why is he crying? But then the mother will wake up and fondle the child, caress the child, comfort the child. And as she starts doing that, gradually affection starts to be built. The child also gets comforted. So, by taking control of how we act, we will get the appropriate feelings eventually. So, in relationships, most people, especially in today's world, they try to feel their way to actions. That means, if I feel like this, then I do like this. So I feel my way to actions. That's how most people act. Oh, I like this person, so then I'll relate with them. Otherwise, I don't care for them. So feeling our way to actions is what makes our relationship very unsteady. Because the feelings may come sometimes, they will not come sometimes. But the other way is, we act our way to feelings. We do the actions and the feelings follow. So, the responsible relationship means we act in a mood of loving service. Even if we don't feel that right now, we act and gradually the feelings will come. And how can we act? That is where the vertical relationship comes in the picture. If we understand that I am a servant of Krishna, and every relationship is an opportunity for me to grow in, I'm not just serving this person, I'm serving Krishna to this person. So, even if this person doesn't reciprocate with me, Krishna will reciprocate. And with that mood when we function, then there can be steadiness, there can be stability in the relationship. So, acting our way to feelings, not feeling our way to actions. That is the key to responsibility. If we start waiting for the feelings to come, then we'll become irresponsible. And this applies actually in every area of life. There's a Nobel Prize winning author. He was asked once, do you write every day or do you write only when you get inspiration? So he said, I write only when I get inspiration, and I make sure that I get inspiration every morning at 10 o'clock. We say, how can you get inspiration according to a schedule? We cannot. But the idea is that if somebody starts doing the activity, writing is quite creative, it requires inspiration. But we can lay the ground for it. So just sit in front of a book, start writing, sit in front of a computer, start typing. And when someone starts doing that, we act our way to the feelings. And that way, we can cultivate a sense of responsibility. And when we do this, it's paradoxical. Actually, it's curious that when we don't look simply for pleasurable feelings, that is when we get the most pleasurable feelings eventually. That means that initially I do something which feels good, and afterward it stops feeling good. It just starts feeling empty. It just starts feeling so pointless. You say, I want to watch movies, I want to eat this, I want to go there, I want to go. You just want to do things which feel good. But afterward they stop feeling good. But in contrast, if we do something according to our values, even when it doesn't feel good, then by doing that gradually, the good feeling that will come will not be superficial, it will be much deeper. Because we have lived in a way that is true to our values. We have connected with Krishna, we have acted in a way that is going to deepen our connection with Krishna. So that way, by acting our way to feelings, the feelings that we get are not fickle, are not ever changing, but they become they are not fickle and superficial, but they are steady and sublime. And that's how we can move forwards in our relationships. So, any question about this till now? Okay. So, yes.
I feel it's my personal experience. I want to read every day Prabhupada books.
Associating with devotees, then we get devotion. So when we read the Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada is present over there. At the same time, we may not be able to perceive Prabhupada's presence over there. So just like Krishna is present in the deities, but we may not always perceive Krishna's presence over there. So it's the same with Prabhupada's presence in his books also. That's why if we are reading, it is very helpful. In fact, it's also essential to try to share reading with someone else. That means if you have some other devotee friend also who likes to read, then make a plan that when you read, every day we'll share one point of what we read. Then that way it said, okay, what point should I share today? So you're reading, that will make your reading more active. And then we'll find more points. That's one thing, sharing the reading. Second is, generally reading becomes much more enriching when it is complemented with hearing. So, if we are reading a particular section of, say, the Bhagavatam, or if we are reading the Bhagavad Gita, then we can try to see if some Vaishnava whose classes we are able to connect with has given any classes on that topic. Sometimes when we are reading, we read at a racehorse pace. I have to complete this canto, then I have to complete that canto, I have to complete that canto. Well, that's one way of reading. If that's what nourishes us, that's good. But sometimes we find that just reading slowly, going deep into a subject, that's what nourishes us. So, if we have, say, if you are spending 1 hour for sadhana, then you may decide half an hour I'll read and half an hour I'll hear on the same subject. And I'll hear from some speaker with whom I'm able to connect and who has spoken on this subject. So, especially if somebody is if you're reading a pastime of Krishna, say we are reading the Rudrasura Gita, and somebody is given a series of classes of Rudrasura, then hear that and then see how the pastime's appreciation increases. Especially if you're in systematic study, like this Bhakti Shastri courses, there's Bhakti Vaibhava courses, where the purports are studied systematically. Then, essentially, we start understanding, okay, how can I connect this with so many other things in scripture? So, absorption is a function of connection. When do we get absorbed in something? That is when, okay, we hear one point and then immediately, oh, some other point comes in the mind. Oh, this was spoken here, that is over here, that is over here, that is over here. So, no, there are some things in which you get naturally absorbed. Some people say, like architecture. As soon as they see a new building, okay, this shape is like this. I saw that shape over there. Now this is quite stable. This is attractive. This is not that attractive. Now this is an interesting design. So what happens is they start connecting what they are seeing with many other things. And to the extent that connection happens, absorption happens. So absorption is what brings satisfaction. Absorption is what brings stimulation. So for us, when we are reading something, how much are we able to connect what we read with other things? That is what will bring the stimulation and the satisfaction. And that can be developed by seeing how other speakers, other devotees, who are seasoned speakers and students of the Bhagavatam, of the Shastra, how they are doing it. So if we do these three things, share, study, hear along with study, and try to deepen our connections. Okay, how is this connected with something else? How is this connected with something else? One way to develop a connection is, many times when we are reading something, our mind says, I've read this, I know this, I've heard this. So we could just turn that point around and say, okay, when was the last time I heard this? I read this point. Okay, when was the last time? What was the context over there? Oh, I heard that in that class. But in that class, if I am reading Rudrasura pastime, here the point seems to be that how Rudrasura had a glorious death. He fought on heroically. But now when I am hearing this, here the point is about how Rudrasura was in a demon's body but still he was a devotee. So what happens is, even if you look at the point can be, the connections can be established also by looking at the context. There is content and there is context. So we feel this content is familiar. So, what same thing is coming again and again. But if we look at the content in context, okay, in what context was this verse quoted last time? Oh, it was like that. That will lead to greater connection. If we consider Sangeet, if we consider music from the Vedic perspective basically has this basic few ragas. But there is so much variety of music that can come, and that comes based on how these swaras are combined together, how these various sounds are combined together. Similar, so it's not just the content, the sound, but the context, which brings absorption. So similarly, if we can look at the point in the context, connect the content with the context, and seeing what different contexts it is used. That's how we can deepen our absorption, and that will give the taste. Okay? Thank you. Yes, please.
Prabhu, you said hearing also improves our understanding, deepens our understanding while reading the Prabhupada books. Is there any specific priorities which have been specified, that whom to hear, how to hear, things like that?
Okay. Are there any priorities about whom to hear, how to hear? Actually, we have to understand that bhakti is an individual process. And because bhakti is an individual process, so as far as priorities of hearing are concerned, we have to find out what inspires us the most. In bhakti there are principles and there are preferences. The principle is that we have to practice the process of bhakti. For example, chanting. Doing japa is the principle. Now whether somebody sits and chants, or stands and chants, or walks and chants, somebody chants in front of the deity, somebody chants in front of the tulsi, these are all preferences. So when the preferences are treated like principles, that is when fanaticism comes in. Every one of us is an individual. So when we go in front of the altar, some of us may feel a great connection with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Some of us may feel a great connection with Krishna. Some of us may feel a special connection with Jagannath. This is a preference, and that's individuality. So in bhakti, there is room for individuality. Not just room. Bhakti is a process which actually brings out our pure spiritual individuality. So therefore, with respect to hearing, we can see what hearing nourishes us spiritually. Now sometimes some hearing may just be, we have to see that as I said, it should nourish us spiritually. Sometimes some devotees in their classes may crack a lot of jokes. And then we may enjoy that. And that can be those classes can be stress busters. They are not spiritual nourishers. We have to be clear about that. Yes, sometimes we are tired and then we just need some relaxation from stress. That's okay, fine. But we cannot rate spiritual knowledge based on the laughter test. The classes that I laugh the most, all those speakers are the best. No. Yes, laughter is good, but we have to see whether I am being spiritually nourished. How do I know I am being spiritually nourished? At the end of a class, if the thing that stays in my memory is a joke from the class, then that is not really spiritual nourishment. It's good, we can use jokes also. We can always, life can be distressing, so humor is nice. But if that is what I am remembering, then at the end of my life, at the time of death, if I am remembering a joke, that will not be a joke. That will be a tragedy. You want to remember Krishna at the time of death. That's why we have to see what nourishes us spiritually. That means, if we hear a particular class, we hear a particular point, that stimulates us to remember Krishna, or that deepens our remembrance of Krishna, then we can hear that more. So, with respect to whom to hear, or in what order to hear, after we have been practicing bhakti for a few years, then this is something which will be a matter of individual preference. Okay? Any other questions? Come between us and Krishna. No relationship is as important as our relationship with Krishna. And just as attachment can be a temptation, similarly aversion can also be a temptation. Normally temptation, we use the word in the sense that which gives us pleasure. But temptation essentially means that it distracts us from Krishna. So sometimes if we are too attached to someone, say if we are too attached to someone and we come to the temple and we are not so much interested in darshan of the deities, we are interested in that person. So, but sometimes the same distraction can happen if you are averse to someone. If you have had a negative interaction with someone, we are taking darshan of Krishna and we just hear that person's voice somewhere. And immediately our mind finds, what is this person here? What is he going to do? What is he going to speak about? So that aversion is also a distraction from Krishna, it's also temptation. That's why Krishna says several times in the Bhagavad Gita, Raga Dvesha Vimuktas. So, this point I'm making to understand this is nothing new. This is a distraction, that is a time-tested distraction which Maya sends our way. That means just as Maya may tempt us, Maya may distract us through attachments. And so Maya may distract us even through aversion. So when that starts happening, you see that, okay, this particular devotee behaved this way, or I had this kind of nasty interaction with this person. But this is also a test of my devotion. And ultimately, my relationship with Krishna is more important than whatever interaction I may have had. So in principle, we see this not as something unprecedented or catastrophic. It is a predictable pitfall of the path of bhakti. Aversion is a predictable pitfall. When it comes, we see that as a working of Maya beyond whatever that person may have done. I gave a class in America, in Silicon Valley. The theme of the class was focus not on the wrongdoer, focus on the ultimate doer. There may be a wrongdoer. See, when Parikshit Maharaj was cursed by Shringi, it was a disproportionately excessive curse for a small mistake. So Shringi was a wrongdoer. But throughout the Bhagavatam, we don't see any incident or any expression where Parikshit expresses anger or resentment towards Shringi. Okay, that happened, he takes shelter of Krishna. He says, focus on the ultimate doer. That how can I serve? Now my situation has changed because of this person's actions. So in this changed situation, how can I serve Krishna? So this doesn't mean that that wrongdoer was right. That wrongdoer was wrong. But is it, Parikshit Maharaj did not feel it was his responsibility to correct that wrongdoer. He said, I have been cursed. If that person has done wrong, that's between them and Krishna. So for me is how best I can serve Krishna in this situation. So when we focus on the ultimate doer, when we see every situation is ultimately meant to deepen our connection with Krishna, then we can move forward steadily. And if that numbness is persisting, then we have to see within bhakti what is it that stimulates bhava for us. Rupa Goswami uses the word uddipan. Uddipan is spiritual stimulus. It's like for each one of us, there may be certain sense objects that may attract us. Say, now all of us want food. That's a necessity. But certain foods attract us. Say if somebody is South Indian, as soon as they hear of idli sambar, dosa, maybe they get excited. Somebody is Punjabi, then parathas. Somebody is Gujarati, then maybe kakra. So like that, food is universal, but there will be specific foods that attract us. So just as in material life, there are particular sense objects that attract us, that trigger emotion within us. Similarly, in spiritual life, for all of us, there will be particular stimuli that trigger emotion within us. So for some of us, it may be a particular darshan of the deities. Not just deities, but a particular deity and a particular darshan of the deity. When they dress with this color dress, oh, they look so attractive, I feel so attracted. Or it may be kirtan, not just kirtan, but maybe a particular Hare Krishna song sung by a particular devotee. It will be bhajans. Oh, this bhajan, when it is sung in this way, I feel so enriched by it. So that way, when we see what is it that can stimulate us spiritually, it may be a particular devotee's classes again, as we discussed about earlier. So then we have to put ourselves in Krishna's gravity pull by bringing those stimuli close to us. So Krishna has a gravity pull and Maya has a gravity pull. So Maya's gravity pull takes us away from Krishna and takes us numb to Krishna. But then when we feel numb, we have to put ourselves in Krishna's gravity pull. How? Krishna, when we put ourselves in Krishna's gravity pull, it will attract us towards Him. But how do we put ourselves there? By exposing our consciousness to the particular uddipan that stimulates us. So by that the numbers can be overcome. Okay? Thank you. So any other questions? Now there is in responsibility, there are two aspects to it. There is when to take control and when to let go of control. Responsibility is in both senses. That, so I say, when a child is small, the parent's responsibility is to guide, protect, take care of the child. When the parent grows up, at that time, the parents need to provide the child wings to fly. The parents need to let go of the child. If a 25-year-old child, the parents try to control that child the way a 5-year-old child is being controlled. Not only will the child be choked, but the child will not be able to grow. Child will be not only be unhappy, but will also not be able to mature. So in every relationship, there is taking control and there is ceding control. There is letting go of things. So sometimes when we are in a particular relationship, we expect the other person, they should be like this. But when they are not like that, we may try to persuade them, we may try to explain things to them. But if that is not working, then we need to let go. Let go doesn't mean that we let go of the relationship itself. It just means that that particular aspect may just not be changeable. And then it requires strength to let go. Normally we think of it requires strength to hold on. That is true. But it also requires strength to let go. Because when we let go, we are actually also letting go of our attachment. So there is a difference between the responsibility and attachment. That's the point which I conclude. See, attachment means that we hold on to that relationship, that object, that person, whatever be the cost. So, for example, Dhritarashtra was attached to Duryodhana. That what happened in that case? That whatever Duryodhana did, Dhritarashtra couldn't say no because he was attached. So attachment in the relationship means that we just don't think of the costs in the relationship. We just act irrespective of the costs. So that is, so he could never let go of Duryodhana. And that's what created big problems for him. Vividhur, right from his birth of Duryodhana told him, Dhritarashtra, you will have 99 more sons. This one son, if you keep him, he will cause the destruction of your whole dynasty. Now when Vividhur told Dhritarashtra, you have to give up this son. That doesn't mean he has to be irresponsible and just throw the son on the streets. He could have handed over the son to someone else. It is Duryodhana, because he got all that royal comfort, he felt entitled to that. And that made him more arrogant. That made him more insecure when that was taken away from him. That made him more envious when the Pandavas got all that. So he had some evil tendencies, but if he had not got royal power, he would not have become that evil person. So Dhritarashtra could not let go. Attachment means we want to continue the relationship no matter what the cost. But responsibility means that we see the relationship as a service to Krishna. And we understand that this is service to Krishna, so I will do it as well as I can. But this relationship is not my only service to Krishna. There are different ways in which I serve Krishna. So if we consider our consciousness to be like water, and the various relationships we have, they are like channels through which the water of our consciousness is meant to go towards the ocean. And that ocean is Krishna. That ocean is Krishna. So through through various relationships and all the responsibilities that we undertake in those relationships, all the services that we do in those relationships, they are all meant to be channels for the water of our consciousness to reach Krishna. Now, we would like from all our relationships, from all the channels, the water to go to Krishna. But sometimes a particular